first 3.5 decades of my life was very goal oriented, and it was actually, in some ways, it was a survival technique, because if I wasn't real, because I lived for tomorrow. I lived for, um, things are tough now, but later I'm going to be, happy, or later I'm going to relax, or it'll all be worth it later. Later they'll appreciate me, you know. Um, and this partly came from growing up in a family where um, my parents, the feeling I got was that they couldn't wait for us to grow up. It was always we were always, wherever stage we were in, we weren't quite far enough. We never quite arrived. we never quite got there. Then I always thought to myself that when I got there, then they'd love me. Then we'd have the relationship, the intimate relationship that I wanted. Then, or I'd be the daughter they wanted. And because I had the sense that I needed too much, and I blamed myself. I thought that I was especially needy. I wasn't, but I thought that I was. They reinforced that. Once I didn't need them so much, we would have a relationship that would work. All I wanted in the end was I imagined us sitting on rocking chairs in our house one day in our front porch, looking out over this little homestead that we had, and seeing our grandkids playing down there and all this stuff, playing down in a field, because this is the house we built. Actually, we had a field, the house on a hill, looked down onto pasture, and eventually this was the dream house we actually ended up building, which I never got to live in, but right before he left me, we built this dream house. And so I'm picturing the two of us in rocking chairs on this porch, and he looks over to me, my little gray-haired self, little tiny rocking my rocking chair. He looks over with his spectacles, puts them down on his nose and says, "Thank you for marrying me. Something like, I can't imagine why you ever married me, but I'm glad you did. I'm glad you put up. Thanks for sticking by me," or something to that effect. Or, "God, I'm lucky to have had you." All I wanted was that dream that one day he would acknowledge that. One day he would look at me, a little shriveled up self, and be like, "Man, I was a lucky guy that she said yes." The same was true with my parents. That one day we would have this family that was, I would have kids and grandkids, and that they would know that we would all be this bonded, close family, and that they'd be like, "You were a good daughter, thank you for being such a great daughter," and that would be that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted, and those goals, which seem so reasonable, were not to be. Those were never going to happen for me. Almost 35 years, 33 years, things went right on track. I basically was able to achieve all my goals, right on time, right on track. Did all the things I was supposed to do all through school. Moved out of the house at 18, went to college, graduated from college. A couple years later, got married. A couple years later, had a child. A couple years later, had another child. Kept moving up the ladder, so financially, economically. We built a business. It got more and more successful. We got a nicer house and a nicer house and a nicer house, and eventually my husband insisted that we build this dream house, and he had sold this whole thing to me about growing up poor. My belief was that he had grown up poor, and so in my mind I thought, this is something he needs to know, that he arrived. This is something he needs to have this as like a symbol that for himself, that he says he's made it. And even though I had just been through this horrible heart attack and been injured and all this stuff, and I was supposed to keep my stress down. And we lived in a house that I loved in a nice neighborhood that I loved, and the only place where all four of us had lived together ever, because was where we lived we moved in there when I was pregnant with my youngest son, and I was perfectly happy where we were. So we started building this dream house. That basically the heart attack was what shifted things, and then and the business shifted things, and all of a sudden as soon as we started making some real money, my husband started the whole devaluing. Really, he'd been doing it for a while, but now he was really going for it, and I think he was trying to get me to leave him because he couldn't figure out how to leave and not look like the bad guy. He didn't want to look like the bad guy, especially because I had just, I'd been sick and I got disabled and all that stuff, and he didn't want to make it look like it was because of that, even though it was largely because of that. It was largely because of two factors. It was because because now I was disabled and needed him, and also because now he was getting his identity, and he was getting a lot of his strokes, his narcissistic supply from this successful business, from being a businessman. And he didn't like the fact that we were in business together and that half of it belonged to me. He didn't like that at all. So up to that point, I had reached all my goals. But in the matter of a year after that, I started losing everything. I was more isolated from my friends. I was, he left me. He moved out. And then my parents and my brother took his side. He had talked them into taking his side, and then a couple of friends were the next ones to fall by the wayside, and then all my assets one by one, the business, the houses, all the business. So basically, I lost everything. My grandparents also died in that period of time, and I'd even lost my health. And ultimately, finally, I lost my freedom because I went to jail. And so there I was, 35 now. At that point, my sense of goals were like, now my goals were really different. And so what I ended up realizing is I wouldn't have gotten myself in so deep if my goals were more associated with my feelings in the now, because the now is all we have. And see, when you're miserable in the now, it's really easy to project yourself out of that. But there's no guarantee what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow, you don't have tomorrow. Things got real simple for me. Everything was stripped away from me. I no longer had a past or a future, because everything I thought in the past had been a lie. The person that I thought I was, the way that I thought family was, the things that I thought were true about my husband, my friends, the truth that I thought about love. There were so many. I was just wrong about so many things, and I had to start over. It's like my past. I didn't remember it largely. I didn't have much memory of it for so long, anyways. And then and now I was figuring out why. It's because the reality of what was really going on and the story we were telling didn't match up, and so I could only remember what wasn't in conflict, and so that meant I couldn't remember very much. And so I didn't have a past other than these stories. The story of my perfect childhood, my privileged childhood, my perfect parents who never got divorced, and my, how I had every chance in the world to be happy and successful, and so that way, any successes I had could be attributed to my parents, and any failures I had or any hard times I had could be completely blamed on me. But then I also didn't have a future. Now my future had just been taken from me. All the things that I'd been building, the things I had invested in, my 30 years investment into my my relationships and my business and my reputation in my community and my, everything that I had spent 30 years investing in for this one day future had just been shattered and blown to a million pieces. Because I had lived a myth, I lived a lie for 3+ decades. The only way I could get out of it was to embrace reality. I had to look at what was real. And if I had done that, sooner, it would have saved me so much heartache. If you break things down to those core beliefs, those core values, you're going to figure out what really matters to you, and that a lot of the times the goals that maybe you have set for yourself are not the ones that really matter. They're not the ones that are going to get you what it is that you really, really want. What really matters is the way that we feel. Our goals are always for a feeling. The whole purpose of them is to make us feel a certain way. So no matter what we do, no matter who we are, what we're really trying to do is feel good. We're trying to get relief from the nagging feeling that we're not lovable, that we're not worthy, that we don't matter.